Hey everybody, Jack Close Painting here with a new video. I've got this awesome Slayer here. This is one of the new star players for this really cool Blood Bowl Kickstarter that I got from Yedharo Models, also known as GT Studio Creations. It's got a whole team. I also got a number of star players. It's got a big roller secret weapon in there. You can see that Slayer right there on the cover. And it's super awesome. There's a link in the description where you too can head over to their Kickstarter and do the late backer to get this team or some of the individual models as well. But today I'm going to show you how to do some really awesome skin tones, and it's going to be easy mode. Really easy to do this. And as per usual, we're going to start off by priming the model. And I know we're doing skin tones, and in the past you've seen me do primers with browns and red browns and even some beiges and things like that to set up our model. But the way we're going to do this is we're actually going to prime it black. Most people just have regular old black primer, and that way it keeps people from having to buy new primer if they don't have it. And it's also going to make our deepest details and shadows be extra dark. Next, I'm going to grab some of our Stynylrez red-brown primer. Now, you don't have to have this red-brown primer. You can use a reddish-brown tone or a darker brown if you want to go for a darker skin tone. I'm just going to do a light pre-shade base coat, letting that black primer show through in a lot of areas. This is just going to help us set up for our flesh tones. And I've got all my flesh tone paints right here. We're using these Pro Acrylic paints. I've got Shadow Flesh. It's a great base tone color. And then we're going to do some Tan Flesh. This is a nice highlight, nice even kind of pinkish flesh. And then I've got Olive Flesh, which is a very light beige color, almost an ivory. And then I've got this Pro Acrylic Transparent Brown, and this is where the magic is going to take place. This is the easy mode element. So first off, we're going to grab our Shadow Flesh. I got that mixed up in the airbrush with some Flow Improver, and we're going to do a light semi-transparent base coat, letting that brown and black primer kind of show through in the deepest recesses and darkest shadows on the model. I'm not doing a 100% top down or high angle. I am going to turn the model upside down here and there just to kind of get the undersides, just to make sure there's no like pure primer showing through. After that, we're going to grab Tan Flesh, and this is where we're going to transition to mostly a top down to high angle spray, kind of a 45-degree spray. Still a fairly wide spray pattern, so you don't have to focus too much things. And here's a little secret. We're actually going to be using this flesh tone as a pre-shade for some of our other colors. So I'm painting this model as if it was completely naked, completely flesh tone. So even though he's wearing pants, stuff like that, I am going to highlight those legs and his hair, things like that. After that, we're going to grab Olive Flesh, and this is going to be our pop highlight color, typically taking the place of a bright white during a pre-shade. And this is where I'm going to focus in our big muscle groups and like his details on the face, get some pop highlights on the hair there, on his knees, on his toes, on the calf muscles, places like that where you want the brightest highlight to be. And like I said, we are using this flesh tone as a pre-shade for our other colors, and it's going to help us out a whole lot, especially with some of the brighter colors, like if you have to paint some whites or some yellows or some bone colors or the orange hair of a Slayer. It's really going to help out having that little bit of a pre-shade. Even though it's not black, gray, and white, it's going to help out. Finally, we're going to grab some transparent brown, just a couple of drops and a whole lot of Flow Improver because we're using this as a color filter. I'm going to be lightly spraying that over the entire model, not focusing on any one area, because we want a thin colored filter to go over these flesh tones to get the flesh color that we want. I like the idea of having some tan, sort of flushed dwarf skin for this Slayer, because they don't wear shirts and they're outside doing quests all the time, so they're probably pretty tan guys. And if you want to try some different color shades for your skin tones, you can just change the color filter. You can go darker, you can go brighter, you can go more red, more purple, more green, whatever you want to do. After that, we're going to grab our Mr. Weathering color from Mr. Hobby. I've got ground brown. It's a really dark brown color. And the first thing I'm going to do is hit the model with our solvent. This is going to lube everything up, let that wash flow over. You've seen me use multi-black before in a lot of projects. Multi-black functions a little bit more like a wash than this does. This is more of a stain. Just the way that it touches the model, it's a little bit different mix. So lubing up the model with our solvent, or even doing like a gloss coat beforehand, can really help. I didn't feel the need to gloss varnish this guy, just because I'm well versed with using the Mr. Weathering color stuff. But if you're kind of doing this for the first time, or you just want to take out any variables for human error or mistakes, having a gloss varnish on there is helpful, but it is not required. You're not going to damage your paint. It'll be fine. So after I slather that all over the model, I'm going back with the solvent in my brush and helping it move around, kind of cleaning it up off some areas, just so that way we have some nice clean surfaces. And then the other thing you can do is use some Q-tips. So I like dipping my Q-tip into the solvent and then touching that to a paper towel. Kind of wicks away a lot of the excess moisture, so you just have a damp Q-tip, and this will help clean off that excess wash and also kind of act as a blender and erasing tool, so you can have that really nice oil wash blended look on a lot of your stuff. So you can see I'm focusing the big areas that I want to be really clean and leaving a lot of that wash gathered up in the details where it will dry and darken those areas. And because we are using the solvent and our Q-tip here to help clean it off, we are actually blending that out. So you have that nice soft blended look, which I really, really like from oil washes. Had to go back and work on the hair a little bit more. You can see that the depth of detail on the hair is kind of shallow, and I wicked away too much of the wash. So you can always just go back and add a little bit more, clean it up a little bit. I'm just using a dry Q-tip this time to make sure that I leave a lot of that wash in the details, and just very lightly touching the model to wick away the wash on the top of the details so that it looks nice and clean and we have that high contrast we want from a wash. You can do as hard lines or soft lines as you want. I like a little bit of a softer look for fantasy models, and Blood Bowl is kind of a fantasy game, so I'm leaving everything nice and soft, making sure to blend it out really, really good, so that we have some nice crisp detail, but also some really nice blended shading on the model. I also really like this Mr. Hobby system because it dries really fast, so you don't have to sit around and wait for wash to dry very long. Just a couple of minutes and it's dry, like 5 minutes or so. And if you have an airbrush or like a little fan or something like that, you can blow air over it. I do not recommend using a heat gun, because when you rapidly dry a chemical wash like this, it can kind of crystallize. I'm not sure what the right word is, but it can kind of like turn into a white powder looking stuff, and that's not great. So cool air from a fan or the airbrush is the best. And he's pretty much done. Like, this is sort of a really good speed paint project. Like if you're trying to get a team or an army on the table really, really fast and have it look nice on the table, it's pretty much done after that step. What I'm showing you right here is that we can take some of that same transparent brown and glaze that into the deep details on his muscles to kind of accentuate those a little bit. I'm not going super hard because, again, I want kind of a softer look, but this is just a little helper that can make things look a little bit more crisp without having hard lines in there. And that's pretty much where I left it. Like, he's ready for the table. I can always go back and do more details. I can do some highlights. I can pick out the details on his hair and his pants and stuff like that. But I just wanted to get this guy looking really good so I can put it on the table, try to get this team painted up so I can play with it because they just look so awesome. Again, there's a link in the description to that Kickstarter where you can late pledge it and get your hands on these models yourself. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll catch you next time.